Hi, I'm Brenda Cartier. I'm a retired Brigadier General from the United States Air Force. I spent about 31 years in the military, and most of it with an Air Force Special Operations Command. My aviation background is flying AC-130U gunships for special operations. My interest in VR, XR, MR, AR, and I'll explain the differences in a second, really came when I was a wing commander, which is a colonel level job. VR was really starting to come into the industry as an application and capability to do training and operations. And when the folks would bring it to me and show me the examples of how we could use it, especially for maintaining aircraft, I was all about it, and I wanted to bring it on board as soon as we could. And then I became a more senior leader myself and was able to really go after as much XR, VR, and AR and MR capabilities as we could. And now I work in the tech industry in that field as well. I think it's really helpful for folks. It can be confusing to understand all of these terms. What is virtual reality? What is extended reality, mixed reality, etc.? Extended reality actually starts with E, but X is just a more fun letter, I guess. So when you hear extended reality, XR, that's the blanket term that covers all the different types of digital realities. So virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality. They're all covered by this umbrella term, extended reality or XR. So let's look at virtual reality. What is VR? In VR, virtual reality, you're fully immersed in a computer-generated 3D environment. So everything you interact with is a digital model, and you don't interact with your actual physical surroundings. Flight simulators do this. If you've ever done VR roller coasters, lots of gaming. You can also have geographically separated people come together in one location in a VR environment. So that's probably the most commonplace one, where you put the headset on and you're fully immersed in your environment. Next would be mixed reality, or MR. And that's where you do both. You interact with your real physical environment that you're actually in, and also computer-generated objects at the same time. You can use these, for instance, to do complicated maintenance tasks. So for instance, you're going to do a maintenance task on an aircraft, and you want to have a digital representation of the piece of equipment that you're going to work on and how to do it. So you may have a headset on where you can see the digital capability, and then you can actually physically do it on the aircraft. So you have both available to you. And then the last one is augmented reality, or AR. And that's where you're operating in your physical environment primarily, but you have digital information overlaid in it. So for instance, a common example of this may be, say you're going to a foreign airfield that has signage in the local language, and you could have an AR capability on some AR glasses, where if you look at the signs with the AR glasses, it overlays the English translation. You lift up the glasses and you're seeing it in its native language. So that's extended reality, the umbrella, VR, MR, and AR definitions there to help out.
Hi, I'm Shelley Peterson, and I work with Wizard Wells. I'm a founder. I'm a consultant for companies who are looking to deploy augmented reality, primarily in the aerospace and aeronautics industries. So in my past, I worked for Lockheed Martin and brought in augmented reality to those groups for spacecraft manufacturing. Right now, I'm also supporting some companies who are building a future airliner, a company that's working with some of the manufacturing capabilities for aircraft. And what we're seeing is that augmented reality can provide significant value within these spaces. Back in 2016, we ran our first activity on the shop floor for Lockheed Martin, and in our very first activity, we cut the touch labor by 50%, meaning the technicians could do the work in half the time. From there, we started looking at additional applications where we were saving 90% touch labor. You go in and you place fasteners using augmented reality. You mark the locations where they're to be placed on the aircraft or aerospace structures, and you can do that in much less time. So that scaled to 10 different sites We were saving about $38 per fastener, and the company was purchasing about 2 million fasteners per year at that time. So that just gives you an idea of what can be saved with this type of technology. And it's grown since 2016. The capabilities have advanced. We're seeing it apply much more broadly within the aerospace industry. But it's an exciting time for this type of technology.
Hello, my name is Mike Schmidt, and as a captain who recently completed upgrade training, I can fully attest to the advantages of virtual reality. While there are many benefits to virtual reality, the three most important aspects to me include: number one, a flight deck aspect ratio that nearly mirrors the real airplane; number two, the tactile feel of the knobs and switches; number three, the scoring and the real-time feedback that you get throughout the training process. Virtual reality really is the training method of the future, and I'm grateful for organizations such as VTR to develop these cutting-edge resources. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Burwell, and I run the simulation training business for Vario Technologies. I've been interested in these disruptive technologies for about 40 years and using them to apply for training and simulation. This technology, where it's been around for a long time, it's only very recently that it's been adequate to be able to create the sense of disbelief that's needed for flight training. And with developments that we've seen recently, where you have very high resolution, wider fields of view, and mixed reality, where you can mix the real world with the virtual world, has this technology been suitable for training? And what this technology will do is it will make it much easier to train. It will lower the cost of training simulation and make it much more available to you and your compatriots.
My name is Ann Bress, and as a former flight attendant, I know that in aviation, preparedness isn't just about knowing procedures, it's about instinctively executing them under pressure. Traditional training generally cannot replicate the chaos of a real-world emergency in a safe and practical setting. But virtual reality makes the impossible possible, immersing trainees in high-stakes scenarios without real-world risk. By repeating simulations, we can reinforce muscle memory for cockpit procedures, emergency equipment use, and crisis response, transforming knowledge into reflex. VR can also help desensitize the startle effect. It allows for dynamically adapted scenarios and ensures that training isn't just theoretical, but deeply ingrained. This isn't the future of aviation training, it's what training should have been all along.
Hi, I'm Mark Vantine. I'm the former president and CEO of Jeppesen and vice president of digital aviation for the Boeing Company. And I'm still quite involved in aviation in a number of different areas. I'm excited to talk about extended reality because the evolution of this technology and the adoption of it really kind of parallels an experience that we had at Jeppesen as we went from paper to digital charting in the cockpit. If you go back to 2009, Jeppesen printed and distributed over 1.5 billion paper charts around the world. But in 2010, really January, Steve Jobs stood up and introduced the world to the Apple iPad. And we were excited about that at Jeppesen because finally there was a form and format that would allow us to display our information in the cockpit, and not only in one-dimensional form, but to do dynamic rendition. But what was interesting is it took the user community and the regulators several years to really accept this technology, and in part because it was based upon a consumer device that was being used in a highly regulated, mission-critical environment. But that adoption came as people really started to realize the improvement in safety and improvement in situational awareness that was a result of that technology. I think the same thing is happening in extended reality. The VR is already being readily used in the training world and simulation world. The technology that's being used and the hardware that's being used is founded or grounded in a consumer-based product, which means that the manufacturers of the hardware are investing because they have economies of scale in better battery life, in lighter headsets, certainly in computing power. So It'll be exciting to see as this technology becomes more and more accepted by the regulators and by the users, how much it really transforms our industry.
So my name is Warren Patori, and I've been in the aviation industry for a number of years. I'm currently a first officer flying the 737 for a U.S. airline. I'm also an alumnus of the Florida Institute of Technology, a former professor and former student. When I was a professor in my classes, VR just started emerging into our classroom space, and then I saw it start to make its way into commercial airline training. And I'm going to talk about it twofold. The reaction from students when they get to see the flight deck of their aircraft in a three-dimensional space has just been awesome. The feedback from our young students is, we need this technology in our classroom ASAP. On the commercial side, it's also very interesting. It's a very hands-on approach to airline training. When you get to the airlines, one of the first things you do is flight deck familiarization. Where are the switches and controls in my flight deck? They're not just in front of you, they could be above you or even behind you. And virtual reality gives us a flexibility to train to a much greater level than the previous paper tiger or paper chart approach. And the portability of VR, the cost effectiveness compared to a fully built flight simulator just cannot be matched. So I'm so excited to see where it's come from, where it's going, and I hope to see it get incorporated both into my university and my current company.
My name is Jeff Pierce, and I'm a wide-body captain for a major airline. Over the years, I've served as an instructor, evaluator, and APD on various aircraft. When I first heard about virtual reality training for pilots, it was from a friend who started a small company in this space. I was immediately intrigued. So much so that 3 years later, I spend most of my day as the COO of that company. One of the best parts of my job is ensuring that our product designs are as true to life as possible. I work directly with our development team to bring flight decks to life, ensuring every detail is faithfully replicated. From intricate controls to realistic layouts, it's all about accuracy and immersion. When pilots enter our VR environment, we want them to feel like they're in the real thing. Other industries have already implemented VR with great success. It's time aviation does the same. The future of flight training is here. Let's embrace it.
Colonel Tim Mosier, I'm retired. I flew F-15Es for quite a while in the Air Force, and then a couple of trainers. I retired recently out of 19th Air Force, where we were working on pilot training transformation efforts, where basically we're trying to introduce different technologies into the training space and just see if we could find efficiencies in training. And one of the things that we found a lot of traction with was through XR technologies. Vario is the leader in XR, especially for the aviation space. They've really just leaned in heavily into that space, and they just build a very good HMD for that process. As the 19th Air Force experience gave me a chance to kind of see if this was going to be an effective way to train students. And our first goal was really to make the students better and then faster when able. So we didn't just pursue XR technologies to replace flying, because we know there's very little replacement for actual flying, but the opportunity to make somebody better so that they get more out of that flight that they go on is really was the goal. My work here with Vario, I'm really excited about it because they were just selected by the Air Force to do a program called Super Goggles, which was to build a set of goggles. All the stuff that's out there is great, but it's probably built for the average gamer. And that was kind of our concept, commercial off-the-shelf gaming equipment, and introduce that into the students' training ecosystem, and then see if that made them better. So that's kind of where Vario is going as we work with the Air Force to create a set of goggles that's specific to the aviation use case. So very excited to be a part of that. As far as VR and mixed reality, for those that are trying to figure out where that all kind of fits, mixed reality allows you to look out through very, very sophisticated cameras. Video pass-through is what it's called. For Vario's XR4, you get 4K per eye, and it's be able to blend those cameras with the virtual reality that you see for the rest of the cockpit or outside the window. and it's mostly seamless as far as, telling the difference between what you're seeing through the cameras and then what you're seeing in virtual reality. And then you have just full virtual reality where you're seeing a virtual picture within the HMDs. So the more that you can put into those headsets, the more that you can make that video pass through realistic to basically mimic the human eye. There's a lot of traction outside of the military. The military, I think, has kind of led the way on this, but I've seen quite a bit, both in the commercial space and then in the civil space as well. So very excited to see where it goes and glad to be a part of it.
Hi, my name is Dr. Suzanne Kearns. I'm an associate professor of aviation at the University of Waterloo and the founder and director of the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Aeronautics. While my background is in training, I think I have a bit of a different perspective when it comes to new technologies, particularly AR and VR in training, because what I don't know that everyone has realized is that they have significant impacts from a sustainability perspective as well. Anytime we can shift hours of training from a traditional fuel-burning aircraft into a piece of technology that is electrically powered, that not only can we customize that training to be more specific to the needs of the learners, which is better for social sustainability, it often produces higher profit margins for flight schools, as well as reducing the cost of training for learners, so it's more economically sustainable as well. And of course, because we're not doing that training in a traditional fuel-burning aircraft, we're also decreasing the negative environmental impacts of our sector as well. So while I think that there are many opportunities for AR and VR and new technologies to enhance the training itself, I also think a different perspective that can be of value is thinking about it in terms of creating a more sustainable future for our industry. Thank you.
I'm Eric Singer. I'm creative director at Coop Studios in Boulder, Colorado. I just came from a zero-G parabolic flight where someone had a pair of the Ray-Ban Meta VR goggles on. Glasses, I should say, because they're incredibly lightweight, and I thought they were just normal glasses. But it got us talking about just all the possibilities of VR and AR in aviation. And so at my company, our focus is on audio, and it's as much of an exciting time in our little segment as it is in all the rest of the VR and AR world. In addition to training applications, we're also deploying executions in things like healthcare, using VR or even audio alone for distraction therapy during procedures like chemo infusions or MRIs. And we know that certain sonic qualities have very real effects on the brain and the body. Everything from pain levels to heart rate. And like it is in every other aspect of life, AI is letting us make huge leaps in immersive audio for VR. We've now got AI voice models that can emulate realistic human emotions. Like they even take breaths where they would have a natural pause. It's amazing. And in a training environment especially, every bit of realism helps, right? You want a pilot who's training to instinctively know from the tone of the instructor's voice how urgent a situation may be. We can also now really easily create voice models of anyone. So if you want your head of training to be the voice your pilots hear, we can create that custom voice model. Another layer of realism that can be added is noise, creating that real-world background noise of a cockpit or outside on the tarmac for ground crews. Outside the training context on that topic is noise reduction. Many of us have active noise-canceling headphones, but we're working now on technology currently getting deployed into automobiles that we hope to deploy someday soon to aircraft.
Hi, my name is Evie Cormican. I'm the CEO and founder of Visionary Training Resources, or VTR. At VTR, we believe that immersive technology is redefining the future of learning, particularly in industries where precision, efficiency, and safety are paramount. Virtual reality training is no longer this futuristic concept. It's a present-day revolution that enhances skill acquisition, accelerates training timelines, and reduces costs. Traditional training methods rely on expensive simulators, classroom instruction, real-world practice, each with its own limitations in scalability, costs, and accessibility. VR enables pilots to train in high-fidelity virtual cockpits, improving muscle memory, situational awareness, decision-making skills without the risks and expenses of physical flight simulators. But this is just the beginning of future immersive learning. It is truly limitless. So what do I think is next for immersive training? AI-driven personalization is top of my list. Machine learning will optimize virtual reality training programs by analyzing individual performance and adapting scenarios to target weaknesses. Personalized training paths will increase the efficiency and mastery levels of pilots, reducing the time needed to achieve proficiencies. Another thing is multi-user cloud-based collaboration. So pilots, instructors, and trainees will train together in a shared virtual environment, enabling real-time scenario-based learning across global locations. Airlines will benefit from remote training sessions, reducing the need for expensive travel and physical infrastructure. Mixed reality is also in that ecosystem of training. So blending VR with AR will allow for seamless transitions between the digital real world and the training environment at the training facilities. This approach will bridge the gap between theory and real world execution, improving knowledge retention and performance. Another one that's pretty high out there is this haptic feedback and sensory immersion. So future VR systems will integrate the advanced haptic gloves, maybe a full bodysuit, maybe full force feedback controls to provide this real-time feeling of the pressures and physical responses in the flight deck. That's truly like the next generation, enabling pilots to react to high stress simulations while they're in flight, turbulence, pressing cockpit malfunctions, and non-normals. The ultimate goal, in my view, is regulatory adoption and industry-wide standardization. As VR training proves its effectiveness, we expect that the aviation regulatory bodies will fully integrate immersive technology into certification programs for pilots. Standardized VR assessments will become an industry norm, ensuring a more consistent and scalable approach to aviation training.
Hello, my name is Celeste Lear, and I'm a Los Angeles-based extended reality experience producer, creative designer, VR artist, and also music composer and DJ with 2 decades of work within the entertainment and audiovisual arenas. I've had the pleasure of working with world-renowned production teams to turn out exciting projects, including many physical, high-tech multimedia installations, concerts, conferences, both physically and live-streamed in the metaverse. My company is called Boutique XR, and our universe is centered around the most current tech and trends for XR in entertainment, music, and events. My teams in various projects I've been hired onto over the years have been able to utilize amazing new tech like spatial computing, holoportation, holograms, volumetric capture, motion capture, and 3D environment design in Unity and Unreal Engine for virtual filmmaking here in Hollywood. Across the aviation sectors, extended reality technology that has been developed and is currently being used is truly revolutionary. And I know that my grandfather, inventor, engineer, and aviation and aerospace legend, Bill Lear, would definitely be using this if he was around today for Learjet or on any of his other groundbreaking innovations.
I'm Liz Rosenberg, and I've been involved in virtual reality and augmented reality and artificial intelligence for the last 35 years. And I actually started my career looking at the use of augmented reality and mixed reality for aerospace and aviation. The first place I did my research was at NASA and at the U.S. Air Force, where I developed something called the Virtual Fixtures Platform, which was a system to enable people to interact with the real world while, for the very first time, having virtual fixtures, virtual objects and fixtures that can help guide their activity. And one of the reasons that the Air Force and NASA funded me to build it was to enable people to control robots in orbit to repair satellites. And one of the problems with repairing satellites in orbit is that there's time delay. And so it's very hard to control something when there's a time delay. And by putting these virtual fixtures in people's environment, this use of augmented reality, we were able to counteract the effects of time delay. And so aerospace was one of the reasons why the very first true mixed reality system was built 30 plus years ago.
Hello, I'm Chad Kendall. I'm an aviation professor and FAA chief instructor at Metropolitan State University of Denver. I'm happy to share that we have just onboarded into our curriculum in the past couple of semesters virtual reality devices that's used for our simulators and advanced jet courses. What a phenomenal resource this is to our students with immersive hands-on experience and providing them the opportunity for cost-effective learning, taking what they learn from the classroom to the flight deck. This saves students time, it saves students money, but more importantly, it gives them the hands-on experience in a classroom setting that they're going to use for flight training. We're excited to partner with all of the companies that we use for our virtual reality devices. We've certainly seen phenomenal interest in our students in the classrooms as they use these units for their flight training. We're certainly excited to see how they progress through their flight training when it saves them time, saves them costs. Thank you.
Hi there, everyone. This is Ariane Fickey from Central Florida, representing the Virtual Reality Augmented Reality Association and also our simulation community. If you didn't know, the National Center for Simulation is right here in Central Florida and represents over a $7 billion simulation industry here in our community. What's exciting is that in 2025, the aviation industry alone stands at a transformative crossroads. And with extended reality, revolutionizing training methodologies, the global community and aviation market will be valued at over $8 billion by 2030 itself. And this is really incredible news. The rapid growth underscores XR's pivotal role in enhancing training efficiency and safety. For instance, militaries like the Royal Air Force have integrated augmented reality systems, enabling trainee pilots to engage with virtual experiences and adversaries, thereby optimizing resources and reducing the need for multiple physical aircraft, doing the dangerous, expensive, and hard in easy ways. However, technological advancements alone cannot address the industry's workforce challenges. Along with empowering women in aviation, this is incredibly essential. Trailblazers like Captain Evie Cormican, founder of Visionary Training Resources with an extensive pilot career, and Dr. Cyan Proctor, the first African-American woman pilot in a spacecraft, exemplify the profound impact of female leadership in aerospace. The aviation industry has long been a cornerstone of global connectivity, yet it faces persistent challenges. From workforce shortages to innovation plateaus, a critical yet underutilized solution lies in fully embracing the empowering women within the sector and using XR technology to train in efficient ways. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Johnston, Director of Product Development here at Visionary Training Resources. I've been pretty passionate about aviation for as long as I can remember, and my work now revolves around creating cutting-edge solutions for the industry. Our latest focus is on mobile VR hardware, an immersive and very portable platform that transforms how pilots learn flight deck procedural flows. By combining dimensionally accurate flight deck geometry with realistic system simulation, we can replicate the experience of training in the real flight deck. Whether you're at a hotel or at home, all while keeping the technology simple and intuitive. As an aviation professional, I'm thrilled by how this technology not only enhances pilot training retention, but also paves the path for safer skies. I'm incredibly excited and proud to be part of the team building this product, and I can't wait to see how it shapes the next generation of aviators.
Hi, my name is Aki Nicolaitis. I'm the Chief Science Officer at Visionary Training Resources. I got my, back in 2016, got my PhD in neuroscience. My focus was on learning, skill learning. In particular, what are the principles that govern how a skill learned in one context can be transferred to another context, another situation, or another task altogether, which is very related to the work of me and my team at VTR, where we use VR headsets to train pilots to learn skills, flows, and procedures that they can transfer into the cockpit and into the simulator so that they perform better and learn all the material that they need to learn much more quickly. We collect a lot of really interesting data when pilots are in our headsets, from behavior, think like millisecond level performance of what people are doing and how they're interacting with the cockpit. We're also collecting very detailed eye tracking data, and we're tracking how the headset moves and how the controllers are moving as well. And we use all of that information to map the learning process as pilots go from beginner to more advanced in their flows.
Hi, I'm Dr. Naila Ayala, and I am a research scientist at the University of Waterloo. A lot of the work I do is in collaboration with the Waterloo Institute of Sustainable Aeronautics. So a lot of what I specifically focus on with my research is looking at novel technologies, specifically sensors, be it, an Apple Watch or a Ring Fitbit tracker, or even eye tracking glasses and VR technologies to gain insight into how the brain works when you're doing specific activities. And so with that really opens us up to using this technology to really improve things like pilot training and pilot training resources. And the one thing that's really exciting about the fact that these VR technologies are expanding and developing at such a fast and amazing rate is really that this VR headset becomes a very data-rich environment. So we're able to look at things like eye tracking, the way that individuals are using the controllers to interact with the gaming environment. And almost every second, we're getting these data points that give us insight to not only provide feedback to the users on how they're interacting with the game, but we're able to look at things like how quickly they're learning and progressing with their skill learning in general. And that allows us to do two things that are very important. This allows us to not only monitor the progression of skill learning and how quickly they're doing that, but this also allows us to look at things that are inhibiting them from training as effectively as possible. So using all of this data in the VR headset, we're able to look at things like what issues are trainees facing that is hindering their training from further progressing. So we're able to give much more custom tailored feedback to individuals. We're also able to use that data to automate the way that their training paradigms actually evolve as they're playing in real time. So based on some of the sensors data, we're able to see, are they being properly challenged or are they not being challenged as much as they should be? And using that information, we can either increase or decrease how challenging the game environment actually becomes. So both of those things really excite me about the way that this tech can really improve pilot training now and for years to come.
Hello, my name's Josh Ray. I'm with Atlas Air. And my primary role is a 747 captain. I'm also an instructor in the simulator and ground schools. But over the last year, I've been working with the director of training, primarily focusing on project management. One of the biggest projects that we're most excited about was actually bringing VR to Atlas Air. So we have partnered with VTR, Visionary Training Resources, to make that a reality here at Atlas Air. Since we have brought it into our group, we have started it on the 737, followed by the 747, and then the 777, and finally, we're just finishing this week, the 767. With those platforms, during training, our first day of ground school is actually a course called Atlas Operation Familiarization. And during that class, at the end of the day, we spend about an hour deploying the headsets, issuing them to each student, and then the trainee takes that headset back to their hotel room where they use it as much as they want to or as little as they want to over the next 3 weeks. The goal is that they try to use it for 20 to 30 minutes a day. And if they average, let's say, half-hour day for those 10 days, that's an extra 5 hours of immersive simulator training with an instructor running your headset. Now, in the end, our goal is to reduce the amount of time we spend during fixed-based training so that way we can be more impactful when it comes to learning things like FMC exercises or LNAV, VNAV exercises and flying the jet at that phase of training. So far, the preliminary data we have coming back in has us going from average time off gate or time off blocks pushing just over an hour. Right now, we're shooting right around the 40-minute mark for the trainees that we have coming through. So it has definitely helped our operation, and it's very noticeable when a trainee takes the time to use it versus those that decide not to use it when they get in the sim world. I'm excited to see where this is going to take us from here, but for now, we are believers in the system. Have a good day.
Hello, my name's Lance Lau. I'm the Director of Training at Commuter, a United Express regional carrier. We're always looking for new ways to help pilots be safer and more technically proficient. One of the new tools is virtual reality. The use of virtual reality helps pilots learn the location of system controls as well as perfect their flows, which are very important to flying an airliner. Being able to practice your flows ergonomically at your convenience will reduce stress during training and increase the productive time in simulators. Currently, virtual reality is being used for orientation and flows. However, we're looking forward to increasing the use of VR as a procedure trainer in the future. At Commuter, we're committed to constantly improve our training in an effort to be better every day. When you have a chance, go ahead and try the headset on. Thank you and safe travels.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Brett Watts. I'm the CEO of True Course Simulations. And what we do is early ab initio flight training using VR simulators and VR virtual instructor inside the headset. So we got our start in military pilot training at the U.S. Air Force Academy, but one of my favorite parts of VR and using VR in aviation is that we realized really early on that this probably is best suited as early as possible. And so we kind of pivoted as a company. We still obviously do the big university programs and military and stuff, but we've kind of started to focus heavily on the youth programs and high school. We see the greatest impact there because these kids generally at the high school age, we're talking about 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds, they don't necessarily know what they want to do. And they put that headset on and you can see them light up and suddenly they just become interested in something when they didn't have an interest before. So we see it time and time again. We have VR labs at high schools all around the country now, and they're learning actual pilot training content from a virtual instructor. They're learning the really good stuff. They're just doing it in a fun way that really kind of brightens them up and gives them an idea for the future. And so these kids are excited to go to school now, and they're excited to think about a career in the future. And all it really took from us is putting the right gear in the right place just to give them that opportunity. And so that's my favorite thing about VR and aviation, and really excited to see where it continues to grow.
Hello, I'm Nelson Wolfmeyer. I'm the Aviation Safety Officer for National Center for Atmospheric Research. We can see the benefits of VR in that as we learn items, it's best as we are mostly visual learners. So if we can turn on the VR and sit in our cockpit mock-up and actually reach out and look around toggle switches, see the flows before we go and sit down at a simulator, which costs thousands of dollars an hour to do. We can get tons of practice, and those neural pathways that we're building while we're practicing our flows, looking for where the switches are, the buttons, emergency procedures, even the standard procedures that we do every day. We see the benefits from VR and the vast amounts of money and efficiency that we build along the way. If we just purely look at it from a memory point, we can see that as we are moving through the virtual reality world and reaching out and actually touching those switches in our mind, and we're looking around the cockpit and we're learning our flows, we'll cut our training time and our requirements immensely. And not only that, it will be a huge money saver in the long run, is again, we don't have to sit in a simulator, sit on flow trainers that are two-dimensional, hanging off the wall and learning our items from there. So highly recommend VR and the benefits that can come from that. And take a look at that in your training departments and in all training situations. There'd be great values added. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Stephanie Fussell, and I am an aviation training consultant with VTR VR. My research focuses on how we can pull efficiency data from virtual reality, including how we learn in VR, the errors that we make, how quickly we're recovering in VR. All of this can be used to make aviation training safer and more efficient, because we can very quickly identify where students need help, where they're succeeding, and how they can get through their training efficiently and very safely.
Thank you, Trimbi. My name is Ben Bowness, and I've been an airline pilot for just over 20 years now. And in the last 4 years, I've been working with a fantastic company called Visionary Training Resources and helping them to develop flight deck procedural trainers for pilots in virtual reality. And more recently, in the last year or so, I've also, through my own company, SkillSphere VR, been filming in full flight simulators using a 360-degree camera, where we are filming in the simulator maneuvers such as rejected takeoff, wind shear escape maneuver, and taking those videos and overlaying them with virtual reality to impart that training, the maneuvers-based training for the pilots. Now, I think this is a really exciting time for pilot training. The introduction of virtual reality has opened up a whole new way of training. I don't think we've seen a quantum leap in pilot training since the simulator was introduced in the mid-50s and 60s. And before then, we were training on the aircraft itself. And with the introduction of virtual reality, we now have the opportunity for pilots using a virtual reality headset, instead of practicing or learning their flows from a manual or a cockpit poster or their own mock-up, we're able to use these virtual reality headsets to impart that knowledge, and we can give them the headset to use anytime, any place, and it gives them access to a geometrically correct flight deck with switches, controls that work, and it shows you the procedure. So I think it's a really exciting time for pilot training. I don't think we've seen such a quantum leap, as I say, since the introduction of the flight simulator.
Hi there, my name's Dan Meeks. I'm the owner of Defiant XR, and I was in the United States Air Force as an instructor combat systems officer aboard the T-43 and the AC-130U. During my training, virtual training devices were a limited resource. Sim and lab time were so limited that they became evaluation tools, not really learning tools. They evaluated how well you obtained gauge prior to the event, how well you read very dry material, or how well you chair flew the mission ahead of time. Now we have better tools to achieve competence, and everything about aviation demands competency. We have a term in the military to rate the efficiency of weapons. We call it probability to kill. That scale went to 0 to 1, and the terrain, it has a probability of kill of 1. So XR is another modality for students who have the drive to learn, but they might not respond to the traditional methods of learning at first. It allows them to learn at their own pace and for as long as they require. If they have the drive, they can be reached.
Hey everybody, my name is Erica Armstrong, and you might know me on social media as a chick in the cockpit. I have been in the aviation industry for almost 35 years on both sides of the cockpit door, and I'm often asked what I see for the future, what changes are happening in our industry that's going to shake things up. So I always go back to the virtual reality and what's coming out and what I see now. So along the way, after being a corporate pilot, an airline pilot, I've been able to come back into the training industry. So we never really think about what's the tipping point to learn something, but as soon as a pilot can visualize or see something, it'll lay down a synapse in your brain that's easily accessible. So we don't often realize what are those things that help us learn, and having virtual reality, especially early in a pilot's career, even coming into a flight department or learning a new airplane, just having the ability to quietly sit in your own space and put these on and go through the flight deck flows, finding out where all the switches are. Before you even start learning the systems, you'll be so far ahead of where the other people would be without this ahead of time. So I'm so excited to see this technology emerging and being embraced by more and more people. And as more and more people use it, it'll get better and we start to share information. So super excited to see virtual reality in our training process. I'm in business aviation right now. Love the idea of having all those options in our toolbox of things that we can use to train pilots.
My name is Andrea Arola, and I am the VP of Sales at Visionary Training Resources. I originally went to UND with their commercial aviation program and flew at a regional airline for a few years before transitioning into the simulation training industry. VR is an incredibly exciting tool. I was just recently at an airline at the initial delivery of the headsets and got to witness pilots put the headset on for the first time that were going through initial training. The enthusiasm was through the roof. The term that I heard was game changer. This is a game changer, and it really is.
Hello, I'm Rick Adams, publisher of Aviation Voices and leader of the Watts Pilot Training Conference. I've been an aviation journalist for more than 40 years and recently published my first book, The Robot in the Simulator: Artificial Intelligence for Aviation Training. A case study that is special to me is the quest for virtual reality flight training for pilots. In 2019, in a conversation with Swiss Marenco about their new helicopter, they mentioned pilot training with VR. I was skeptical because most experts thought VR flight training was at least 5 years away. I connected with their startup supplier, VRM Switzerland, and its CEO, Fabi Reisen, and in early 2021, I visited their facility in Zurich on the weekend when they were doing final preparations for their certification review by the European Union Aviation Safety Agency. What impressed me about VRM Switzerland, now known as Loft Dynamics, is that they did not come from aviation backgrounds, nor simulation and training. They were mostly young engineers from the Technical University in Zurich who took on the challenge and solved it with ingenuity. I might add, it took traditional tech companies an additional 3 years to achieve the same thing. In my mind, Fabi Reisen and his growing team at Loft Dynamics rank with the pioneers in aviation training.
So my name is Shay Oakley. I'm a commercial aviation historian. My background in aviation was 6 years in airport operations and management in the New York area, and then 16 years in aviation museum administration, and the last 7 years roughly as an independent aviation history consultant. Of course, any simulator by nature is a virtual reality device. So flight simulation, even from its earliest days with the old link trainers in the 30s, was a form of VR. But there were two things that have happened since then that have revolutionized the field and made it what it is today, in my view. One is around 1970, the introduction of full motion flight simulators. on hydraulic legs. The second was the incredible explosion in technology as far as CGI, computer graphics, that really made the view outside of that simulator's quote-unquote window a real-world view. So those two things is what made flight simulation what it is today. And I see that continuing, particularly with the CGI, continuing to trend in the future to make commercial aviation even safer than it already is. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michaela Galler. I will be an astronaut one day. That is my big role in the aviation. But right now, I'm an aviation or aviator advocate. I'm really big on advocating for aviation and general aviation. I currently have my glider certificate or glider PBL and also my single engine add-on to that as of recently, which is really exciting. And with the VR, it is amazing. When I was able to do the VR simulator and fly I'm not exactly sure which type, but it was an airliner jet. And I got to be immersed of like how everything works, on how the display works, how to control it. It was like I was really there. It was amazing. And the way it looked was just like when you walk by or you take a little quick peek inside the cockpit. It looked exactly the same, which is amazing. And I honestly think that this will be a huge key role in the future and right now to teach pilots and aviators how those things work and really feel like you're there and not just at the park or something, but you feel like that you're there, which is amazing. Because like I would never think that I could actually pretend and like actually test these things out as if I was really there. And I honestly think this would be a really good and safe way of training pilots, especially when they're going to be going into something pretty hectic or something challenging, that they have the experience of, hey, I've already done this in the simulator, or I've already done this in this VR world, relaying that I'm like practically there, which is, like I said again, amazing. And I think VR is going to be an opening for a lot of different things in the future, especially in the world of aviation.
Hi, my name is Catherine Creedy, and I am a veteran aviation journalist, and I have been covering pilot training and training in general for over a decade now. I was first introduced to VR and immersive technology a few years ago at one of the conferences I attend, and I've seen it since then, and even a few months ago, I saw immersive technology training pilots at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and was just blown away by the how it can train the pilot to do what he or she needs to do before they even get out on the ramp. It's so they've got the muscle memory before they even get out on the ramp, and it's really, really, really impressive. As for virtual reality, I have used a couple of headsets and just cockpit flight deck familiarization and what to do next and all of the instructions that come with it. It really is a game changer to pilot training and so impressive compared to the old time poster on a wall that is pretty boring compared to the virtual reality sets that I've used and what I've seen in immersive technology.
My name is Chris Komen. I'm in the industry for quite a while now. Started at KLM back in 2015 with a cardboard, where I showed the potentials of virtual reality in the hangars. We created evacuation training there. And from there, we started to create a team where we built kind of scenarios for evacuation of the hangars. That grew up to a bigger team where we built lots of training in aviation and started with the evacuation, of course, the pushback training we had, familiarization of a cockpit, the Embraer, with the jetway bridge training, fire safety on board training, and a few I probably forget because of the numbers that we had. And then in 2020, I started at IT department where we did the implementation of VR to make it useful for the company itself. And from there on, we created lots of training for the entire company. Then in 2023, I started my own consulting company where I guide big companies within the VR how to implement it within their companies. I'm also advisor of the board at AVR, where we build ground training for aviation, like marshalling and pushback training, and we push that to a lot of large industries all over the world.
Okay, so my name is Drew Nicholson. I am an aviation professor with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I'm also a pilot recruiter with Commute Air, United Express, and I'm also director for OBAP ACE Academy, Aerospace Career Education Academy in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so virtual reality, VR, is a milestone in aviation training on a whole. It provides a brand new perspective, especially for pilots transitioning from piston aircraft to jet aircraft or other high performance type environments or platforms where you're not readily going to be adept with flows and call outs. But with VR, you could save costs because now you have a geofenced, dimensioned environment where you can actually practice and just getting used to the sequence of events or action items that you need to accomplish. So it's a big plus, and we're looking forward to even further development and immersion in the industry.
My name's Casey Adamson, and I work for Kimley-Horn. I'm a project engineer for civil projects on airports. We love the VR applications we can use. One of the cool things that Kimley-Horn developed was a cutting-edge VR application to support our clients in meeting the FAA requirements for what we call the Virtual Immersive Sighting Tower Assessment. That's VISTA, and it's an innovative solution that enables our stakeholders to visualize and assess potential air traffic control tower locations in a fully immersive environment. It enhances decision-making, helps with regulatory compliance and collaboration. By integrating this advanced real-time visualization technology, we streamline the sighting process, delivering greater accuracy and efficiency for aviation infrastructure projects.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Glenn Ross. I am the Director of Global Business Development for TrueCourse Simulations. We build immersive flight training devices, both the hardware that the student actually uses for training, and we also build software or courseware that the student uses that's 70 plus lessons that the student follows just like they would in the real aircraft with a real instructor. However, this is delivered by a virtual instructor. My background is as a pilot, commercial pilot and a flight instructor. And while I worked for Massey University in New Zealand, I did a research master's and the topic of my thesis was using virtual reality in flight training. Subsequently, I joined TrueCourse Simulations to work with them developing their systems. So I now see firsthand how immersive training of virtual reality and mixed reality is benefiting students with organizations like Embry-Riddle University in the United States, Massey University and Nelson Aviation College in New Zealand, and other organizations around the world. And what we're seeing is, and hearing from students, is how much they love the technology, how more engaged they are with their own learning. And thirdly, and I think probably most importantly, is when the students are actually getting into the aeroplane, our instructors, or their instructors rather, are saying how much better prepared the students are when they're in the aircraft, and that's being shown in a reduction of hours that those students are needing in order to achieve milestones like first solo and getting their license. What we're seeing is that this is a very effective tool which people enjoy using, and we're only just starting to see the benefits of it right now, I believe.
Hi, I'm Dana Donati, former airline pilot and CEO of Breaking Down Barriers. I'm a passionate advocate for expanding access to aviation careers. With Visionary Training Resources VR technology, we're able to bring the cockpit to the classroom, sparking curiosity and passion in a career that some kids never imagined that they can do. By making the flight deck more accessible, we're opening doors to future pilots and breaking down barriers within the industry.
Hi, my name is Nikki Reeves and I'm the Business Development Manager here at VPrep Visual Training. We supply online training for A320 and Boeing 737 pilots via our collection of video training aid. When we were exhibiting our product at the IATS training exhibition, I'll be honest, it was a real crowd puller, and the intrigue actually sparked from there. People were surrounding around and having a look at, its ability to actually help with like cabin crew training, and then later, we see the actual involvement of the pilot training as well, because they can actually go over a scenario in the classroom and they can come home and actually replay that scenario, if you like, whilst they're actually in the comfort of their own home, however many times it takes them to actually get familiar with that actual procedure, etc. So yeah, on the whole, I'm really, really excited to see its involvement, the actual impact it makes actually fulfilling the pilot shortage issue that we have at the moment in training, and yeah, really excited to see the future of VR.
Hi, my name's Hector. I am an ATP CFI and have been flying for a little bit over 20 years, and I now manage a flight department, along also help with an advanced flight school where we train professionals to increase their level of professionalism and proficiency in the industry. VR in our training environment is so important now because until recent times, only pilots had the ability to simulate their environments. Now with VR technology, we can bring that simulation to different areas and even increase the pilot's immersivity on training for more realism, so that we can simulate feelings and emotions that a person will feel with this immersive scenario. Making this available to different areas of aviation definitely would be an increase in safety for everyone involved.
I'm Stella Hughes, and I'm the Air Traffic Services Training Center leader at CAE. CAE is the leading provider of pilot training in the world. So if you have taken a plane, chances are 1 out of the 2 pilots that are up front have trained with CAE. VR is absolutely going to change that over the coming years. We've been investing in enhanced reality technologies for years already, but back in 2021, we formally announced a new product line, which is our first mixed reality device, which is tailored towards the advanced air mobility market, which allows pilots to interact with hardware with the simulator with mixed reality goggles on. So this is meant to really simulate some of these highly immersive flight simulators, akin to what we are doing on full flight simulators already, but with a much smaller space, which means you can train anywhere at any time. More recently, last year in Las Vegas, we announced a partnership that we have with Apple on the Apple Vision Pro. This is a new partnership that will allow pilots to train a lot of these procedures that they need to do, but at home, rather than having to travel across the country or in some instances across the globe to train in one of CAE's 40+ training centers. Pilots will be able to put on a mixed reality headset and be able to train for their integrated procedurals training. We've launched this with the Bombardier Global 7500 pilot project, which is going to be rolling out in the spring. So stay tuned for what's here to come.
Hi, my name is Francisco Herrera Ru. I am a Boeing 787 captain, also manager for Aviatrix Aerial Training Solutions. I've been in the industry for over 30 years, And we're recording this in early February 2025, and we can safely say that it has been a tragic, fatal year for the aviation industry. From ground handling, ATC controllers, airlines, medevac, business aviation, general aviation, we have had a share of fatal accidents this year. So this only shows the importance of having proper, effective training that goes above and beyond what traditional training has meant in the past 30 years. Deep down, everyone involved in the aviation industry, we are risk managers, we are risk assessors and risk managers. There's the need for that training to be delivered by experienced people. Virtual reality, augmented reality are the most effective tools known to the sector up until now, and we would like to see all training migrating eventually to VR.
I'm Darko Nikolic. I'm the CTO of Reaction Simulation, and our company specializes in real-time self-guided training tools that enable pilots to practice response to scenarios not typically included in traditional simulator programs. It works for both VR and iPad devices. And what I wanted to talk about is that it's really surprising how little VR is used in aviation training. Our research has proven that VR improves skill retention, decision-making, and training efficiency. It's a highly effective tool for cockpit flows, emergency scenarios, and systems training, without the costs and limitations of traditional methods. This technology isn't theoretical, it works, and it's time for aviation to take a full advantage of it.
I'm Allison Kukel, and I'm the founder of Aviate and Com. And actually today I wanted to tell an experience that is actually not my own or my own work experience, but it's my husband. So he and his college friend played Microsoft Flight Simulator years ago when they were studying. And then about 4 or 5 months ago, his friends received, bought the new Microsoft Flight Simulator and was flying over the hometown that they both come from. And a few weeks later, and to say that my friend is in the east of Germany and my husband was next door to me here in the Netherlands. So, they got on the aircraft and they took a flight together, and it was a little sightseeing, and they really enjoyed it. And a few weeks later, my friend that is living in the east of Germany, he took a flight, just a normal flight for a vacation, and looked out the window and took a picture of the same area. And when they were comparing the two, they could almost not see the difference between, the simulated version and the real version. And I think the most exciting thing about this is my friend has decided to embark on a journey to get his PPL. And I know for sure that he wouldn't have done it had he not been able to get into this virtual environment again as an adult. And I'm really, really excited about it. So I think it's also exciting to share with you how maybe easy it could be to get involved in this technology and also get involved in maybe flying for real with a PPL or CPL or even commercial license. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bauermeister. I'm a flight instructor at Ames Community College, and I also play a role in the Women in Aviation chapter. One of the big things we do within the Women in Aviation chapter is outreach to youth. We like to outreach to girls specifically, but we also want to go to underserved communities to expose them to aviation when they otherwise might not have been. One of the ways we're able to do this is through VR technology. We had created a virtual reality simulator and then put it in a trailer so that we could bring it to kids across the state who might not have been able to come visit us or might not have had the resources to get there. So through this, we've been able to excite kids into aviation. They've gotten to get a hands-on feeling of what it feels like to use the rudders, the flight controls, and of course the views, which is our favorite part.
Revolutionizing. I just can't get that last sentence out.
Oh, that's okay. We'll just go one more time.
Okay.
Yeah.